Hi guys, it's Alex McCann here, and we're here for the Social Conversation, the show where we talk about what we've seen on social media over the past 7 days. And we're joined by some fantastic guests today. We're joined by Henry from Wow Yau Chow, we're joined by Rowan from Green and Grounded, and we're joined by Caroline Boyd from Boy Oh Boy Designs. And I'm Alex McCann from Manchester-based social media company Altrincham HQ. Award-winning now, actually multiple award-winning. We've just won the Digital Company of the Year at the Altrincham Chamber Awards. I previously won the Best Social Media Company in Manchester. And we primarily work with Altrincham, Greater Manchester and Northwest businesses, but over the pandemic, we've also worked in businesses from New Zealand and Lisbon. So we're going to get to meet our guests first of all before we jump into today's talking point. So we're going to start with yourself, Henry. 20-30 seconds on a little bit about yourself and Wow Yau Chow.
All right, my name's Henry. I'm the Chief Taste Tester for Wow Yau Chow. We're a restaurant in Altrincham Town Centre, serving up our alternative Chinese food, which is our version of Chinese comfort food, and that's what we do.
Fantastic. And just down the road from you, we've got Rowan from Green and Grounded.
Sorry. Hi guys, I'm Rowan from Green and Grounded. I own a shop on Stamford New Road in Altrincham, and we sell houseplants.
Fantastic, and there's a massive market for that on Instagram, I believe, from when we met a few months ago.
That's right, yeah, it's gone absolutely huge.
Fantastic, and last but not least, Caroline from Boy Oh Boy Designs.
Hello, yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Caroline, and I set up Boy Oh Boy Designs back in May time last year. And I've just been growing it in terms of doing illustrations of shop fronts in the local area, primarily sale, but I have got an Altrincham connection. I went to school at Loretto Grammar School years back, and yeah, I'm doing graphic design as well for local startups.
Fantastic. So we've got a couple of brand new startups that started either just in lockdown or just before lockdown. And Henry's in this case a bit of a veteran with us today.
Veteran of 2 years.
Veteran of 2 years. So 2 weeks ago, we had our International Women's Day special. We had Kirsty James, Sue France and Trisha Peters, who were free networking queens. And we always say your likes, shares and comments really do matter. So if you know myself or any of the guys on screen, and you're watching this, please do hit the share button. So we always start off each show with the news that's just in. And we've had two pieces of news that literally stood out 5 minutes before we went on air. So the first thing that I saw that really stood out, and we're not really going to talk about this, but it's really interesting points. Pubs in Scotland has just announced that pubs can open at the same time as non-essential retail, except they can't serve alcohol, which kind of goes against the point of pubs. Why the hell do we put our politicians in power to make these decisions? And the other story is a bit more local and close to home. We just noticed it's been a scoop on, I'm trying to think who, React News just announced it. The co-founder of Nikal, the firm behind Altrincham's long-awaited Altair, has parted ways with the company. So, of course, that is not going to mean any more delays for Altair because we haven't waited for 20 years now for this to happen. So we're going to jump straight in from the breaking news and go into today's talking points. So, Henry, what has stood out for you so far on social media this week?
I think literally just reading about all the pubs and the restaurants being absolutely inundated with, I think, the 12th of April week where they're allowed to reopen, and reading basically that so many have actually got bookings right the way throughout April, May, June and July pretty much. And, you know, that just shows the sort of pent up demand that's really out there for eating out really. And we can see that really now, even like people are asking us whether we're going to open our little terrace, and it's only a small area, as you know, Alex.
Yeah.
And I think reading today in the same way that Ivuna, basically, they're going to be opening their courtyard basically outside. So it's just fantastic seeing that many, it's almost life, a sort of normality really coming back to life.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, as you said, we put on Ivuna today on social media and our Facebook page, and the reaction to it was crazy. We saw the reaction, as you said, to your terrace, and we work with quite a few restaurants and bars, and we've been inundated with places that clearly have no outdoor space asking, can we book for the week commencing the 12th of April? And we're like, no, we're going to have to wait to the 17th of May, I'm afraid. But No, I mean, I really can't wait to get out. I mean, how are you guys? I mean, I'm desperate. I mean, when did we go into lockdown? Was it October, November now? I'm trying to think. I can't remember. Were we actually open in December? We weren't around here, were we?
No, beginning of November, I think we closed down it. We locked down, didn't we, I think? Yeah,
So
beginning of November.
So apart from your own place, Henry, where was the last place you actually dined out in?
Oh my. Wow. I think now that really is, I can't remember.
Long time.
I can't really remember.
It's nearly half a year, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll come back to you, Henry, if you can't remember. Where did you two eat? Where did you, Rowan and Caroline?
I think the last place I went to was Porter. Yeah.
And you'd have been freezing under the canopy outside, probably.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, definitely. And Caroline?
I think it was Chez Nous in Sale, and it was for a real belated Mother's Day meal out last year, when it felt like, okay, we'll venture out and it feels a bit safer, because it's really shifted my mindset and perspective on things. And I have felt quite nervous through a lot of this lockdown, but I've been really intrigued by the way businesses have innovated. And there's the Perfect Match in Sale that did a beef Wellington, and they provided it in a box and you could pick it up, and the instructions on how to cook it. And there's been some great innovation as a bit of a silver lining to what's been a really hard time for the industry.
Yeah, it does feel like, as you just said, belated Mother's Day. We've missed Mother's Days and Father's Days and birthdays, and we're coming up to a lot of people missing the second birthday, me included, in the end of March next week. Miss the second birthday again. Absolutely, there is that pent-out demand. How are you feeling at the moment, Henry? Because you're the only food-based business on here. How are you feeling about opening that little terrace up?
Very excited. It's almost like we're saying to this, originally we wasn't going to do it. Originally we were just going to wait until May, until we reopen up. But as more and more people were just asking us, we thought, you know, actually, it's probably a good idea for us, because it is a smaller area for us, but it just lets us begin the process of opening up as a restaurant. And just allow people just to see people, because it's so weird being in the restaurant and you don't see anyone.
No, it's a strange time. So we're for anyone who's watching this, we're going to have a pinned post on the top of our Facebook page, which is listing all the places that are going to be reopening for the open alfresco dining. And Henry's going to be on there. We're just going to add him on tonight. But the list is a lot longer than I imagined. There's sort of all those rumours sort of about a month ago where, only 40% are going to open, only 50% are going to open. And by the look of it, I think pretty much nearly enough anyone's going to open, apart from Wetherspoons at the moment, which is kind of a good thing. So it's going to be, it's going to be a fantastic. I can't wait till the 12th of April. I might even book it off work and actually enjoy somewhere for once. So
Why not? Why not?
Yeah, definitely. What else have you seen? I think it's, again, something food and drink related, isn't it?
Yes, our favourite, really, Greggs. Greggs are basically going to be expanding, so we can get our fill of sausage roll, or vegan sausage roll in your case, Alex. And it's quite an interesting story. I think in the 36 years, basically, they've been, I think, listed in the stock exchange. They made the first loss, but pretty much they said they're going to try to expand by 100 sites. And I think it's just really positive to see that, obviously with Greggs being one of our local favourites. But it's just seeing a number of other places like Greggs, like Wagamama's also, who are expanding. So it's just really positive to see that, there is sort of green shoots of recovery out there, and there is lots of positive news. But it was lovely to see Greggs being right up there in the news.
Yeah, it's a funny story. I mean, Greggs have just opened. I'm not sure if you're aware. They've opened a little outlet in Tesco's in Altrincham, and we took the picture, I think, the day it opened, and the reaction to a Greggs in Tesco's was pretty insane. It was just like everyone was tagging their friends in and sharing it, and I think they are. I take it they're still British owned. They're a British institution. I take it. Northern
institution, probably even.
Yeah, people down south only know Pret, so I guess they won't know a Greggs down if you're in London.
No, apparently there are Greggs down there now. There are not that many, but there are.
I mean, for you two, how does it feel, Caroline, first of all? I mean, Sale's going through a bit of a revival at the moment. Everything gets touted as a new Altrincham, but Sale's kind of been touted as a place to be seen. And I think there's been two businesses opening, isn't there, from Altrincham? Sugo are opening in the near future. And
Yeah.
also the guys behind Libero are opening one of their sort of batchy beer store things going on in the middle of sales. How did it feel, obviously, as an Altrincham resident or schoolgirl to Sale?
Yeah.
How did it feel to have that revival?
Yeah, it's great to see it, and the sort of the spread from the nearby towns and the cross traffic of these different businesses. And then, of course, well, Sale, I think we've got Rudy's as well, and there's just a lot of infiltration, and then Mustard, of course, you've got that in Altrincham now, so we're swapping a few businesses, aren't we? Yeah, it feels like there's been a lot of change. I've lived in Sale for a long time and studied in Altrincham, so I'm close to both towns, and it's been long awaited, I think, this revival of Sale, and it's sort of targeting the new residents that I think are starting to move into the area. So really liking beer and groceries, which is a really cool shop with lots of independent and eco-friendly supplies you can top up. And yeah, I think there's plenty of choice. I'll still be going to Altrincham to shop as well. It's not to deter me.
and does Sale have a Greggs?
It does. Yeah, we do have Greggs, and it's been there for a long time. Not far from the Tesco, but not in the Tesco. So it's not quite that good, is it?
No, you've got a Pound Bakery as well in Sale, which Altrincham hasn't got. We did have one. I think it's now a laundry near to the new Mustard now, but you can send a Pound Bakery our way. It's cheaper than Greggs.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll have a word.
So how are you feeling at the moment, Rowan? Are you feeling positive? Because obviously you're stamping new road, that sort of road where everyone walks past, and you opened, when did you open? Was it just before lockdown or in the middle of?
Yeah, in October. So the opening in October was a bit of a gamble, but we've persevered throughout the lockdown. It's been okay. It's been positive. Click and collect's been going well, and people have still embraced the whole concept of it. So it's been ace. Yeah, it's been good.
I think, yeah, as Henry said, the positivity, obviously we started with Greggs, but there's lots of independents opening. Where you are, there's the new vegan and vegetarian Indian restaurant. There's the beauty salon next to you. I think near you, there's also going to be some law firm, isn't there, opening as well?
That's right, yeah. They're taking the whole building as well, which will be really nice to see a full building used for one purpose.
So I think
big up Stamford New Road.
Yeah.
There's definitely that sense of positivity, and I hope we do see. I think the economists described it as a U shape. I think we've gone down, and we're going to open at the 12th, and everyone's going to go shoot straight back up. So fingers crossed, we'll think positive. Fingers crossed it is a U shape and not a weird shape like that. But yeah, so obviously that's fantastic. Lots of positivity. So the thing that stood out for me, which stood out yesterday, and literally I was inundated with notifications, and it was a trend that was about where I started and where I am, and people were talking about the 5 jobs that they'd had. So I looked about, but I think the whole purpose, it tends to happen every year to inspire people that you don't have to have one career choice and stick to it. But I was thinking about my career, and I used to be a journalist, then an events organizer and a band manager and a DJ, and now I've been running a social media company since 2009. So I want to go around the room, and I know Henry's had an interesting journey. I want to find out all your interesting stories. So if you could list your 5 career options, the highlights in order, talk us through yours first of all, Henry.
Oh, probably in that case, I'll probably start my first one then. In that case, my first one being pretty much from a Chinese takeaway. That's where I started life, really. Started life in the Chinese takeaway, and pretty much spent my early days working within like a fish and chip shop Chinese takeaway, like a lot of my parents' generation did. And then vowed never to be in hospitality, therefore went into finance. So I'm actually an accountant by profession. and the first thing people always say is, oh, so you must be amazing at your books. Absolutely not. So pretty much I've spent, before coming into hospitality, that's really the only other career I had, was really spending about past 15 years in finance, in banking, and in accountancy, really, mainly in London. And the highlights probably of being in banking, I was very fortunate enough to work with HSBC. And with working at HSBC, I was in sort of like a global sort of role, and I got to do a little bit of traveling. So in those days, that was fantastic. And probably, if I just probably say, I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to go to like Buenos Aires, and that was probably one of the highlights for working anyway. It's not probably work related really, but just a fantastic trip to be able to go over there. and have some fantastic steaks.
So quite varied. You've come full circle almost, in essence, in what you're
Pretty
doing.
much. now I'm here, often delivering, driving as well.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people like they step away from the background. We had Johnny from Little Red Pizza Co. who used to own Red House Farm, and he told me that he vowed never to work at a farm again when he was younger, because his parents grew up with a farm and he lived on the farm. And he said, I'm not going to have a farm and marry the girl from the village, and he did exactly both of those. So it's really interesting how people come full circle. What's your story, Rowan? What did you do? Because I didn't know your story before this.
Oh, so I originally trained as a horse riding instructor, which is pretty far away from owning a plant shop. But then I guess it shows that I always enjoyed being outside and being with nature. Gave that up after 2 years because it was too cold. So became a florist, which was then even colder, and did that for 20 years before going off travelling for a year and coming back and setting up the plant shop.
So again, travel plays a part in all our jobs so far. So you've got to raise this, Caroline. What's your 5 career options?
I'll have to throw in a humble brag of a big work trip then. So I've got one. So for me, I studied drama at university, and then after that I confidently walked up to the Waterside Arts Centre, which was being built at the time, and I was like, "It's the answer to all of your prayers. Here I am. I've just graduated in drama. Do you need anyone to manage this?" So naive. So yeah, I started out as a volunteer at the Waterside Arts Centre. Great place to work, and that was in marketing. I've started to fall into helping to promote and publicise it. And at the same time, I was doing some painting, and I used to do Irish dancing as a child as well, as loving art. And I painted some Irish dancing shoes for my old teacher. And I created a few prints of those and sold them to a lot of the mothers of kids that were doing Irish dancing. So that was my first kind of art business. And then I put that on hold and started taking my marketing career more seriously. I worked in marketing at the Bridgewater Hall. They had a radio show on All FM. So I got trained up on radio, and I started doing DJing, as you know, Alex, like the shoes on the other foot tonight with you interviewing me. I used to do a radio show, and I had you on a few times with your bands. So I did that for about 13 years alongside my marketing work. And then I've worked in promoting things in the charity sector, in universities, and this is where my travel comes in. I was promoting research that Manchester University was doing to tackle inequalities, and I got to go to Cape Town, which was, yeah, really eye-opening, some of the things that we saw and the contrast between rich and poor there. So we saw some fantastic things and beautiful scenery. And that is the best work trip I've ever been on. It's been like Huddersfield and stuff since then, which is still great, but not the same. That's me.
Oh, I'm a bit jealous of all your trips now. I think the furthest I've been Scotland and Ireland is the furthest I've been with work. And I'm like, yeah, it's normally Bolton or Bury or somewhere like that. But yeah, so I mean, that's really interesting, people's journeys. And I think if anyone is watching this, particularly parents watching this, I think it's worth just like getting your kids in just for this section of what we've talked about, to learn about people's journeys, and that if you're 16, 18 years old, you're not going to do exactly the same thing the rest of your life. You're going to go for all these different routes that lead you on to random different things. And we're all young enough to have probably another 5 different careers by the time we retire. So God knows what we're going to all do next. So yeah, that was really interesting. The notifications just were popping off over that yesterday. So I thought I've got to mention it as a really interesting thing. And the other thing I saw yesterday, and I'm not sure what your thoughts on this, so there was a hashtag save anonymity. I think that's how you pronounce it. It was a petition that Katie Price, aka Jordan, had started to make verified ID a requirement for setting up a social media account. And it's been deemed by some a potential harmful move for people's privacy. And I'm always interested in this debate. I love the whole idea that things can be free and open and all that. And I love that element of social media. But also I've been on the other side, and I think the reason Katie Price wants to do it because of the trolling elements with her son. And I've been the victim of trolling over the years. So I'm definitely like, part of me is edging from like, I think you do it as you get older anyway. Everything's free when you're younger. You get a little bit older and you get a little bit more sense when you go, yeah, we do want a little bit of control. We do want a little bit of censorship here on social media. So what are your thoughts, guys? Do you want social media to be a free-for-all? Do you want it to be totally controlled? Do you want it somewhere in the middle?
Middle.
Yeah.
I don't know. I suppose so. So we're talking about like verifying accounts and so that we can track people that are trolling, really, which is obviously a good thing. But then I think a lot of us are becoming more and more savvy that, oh, well, this links up with that and it links up with Google, and actually Facebook knows where I am all the time. And do I want, will it ever be used for evil? I think there needs to be some sort of middle ground. So I'm like you, maybe, Alex, I'm not totally against it, but also, middle.
Rowan, what's your thoughts?
I'm actually completely side with Caroline on that. I think that if you're not doing anything wrong, you haven't got anything to hide. So I don't really see the issue, but also can see why people feel like it's an invasion of privacy. So bit of a grey area for me. I personally wouldn't mind giving it over and having an ID, but then I can see people that would mind. Yeah, I don't mind it.
It's a hard one, isn't it? So Henry, you used to work in banking. You probably know the tech side. Everyone knows everything about us anyway, don't they?
Probably somewhere. But it's very interesting. This is just reminding me of what's happened in Hong Kong recently, though, Alex, what you've just said there. Because I think recently, people have had to. I remember reading a headline saying people were buying burner phones in Hong Kong because people who were having to, have notifications on their phone as to where they were, and I can't remember exactly why, but it's because, like in China already, I believe that there's already like social points. So because all the CCTV cameras, like, really is Big Brother watching. So, and I just remember this is sort of just raised the point about people in Hong Kong were actually buying new phones, like old second-hand phones, just so basically they can leave at home, so not being tracked and stuff like that. So I think it depends on I think it depends on probably where you are, and I think being ultimately in the UK, we probably take for granted a little bit more about our actual freedoms, basically. And I suppose now seeing Hong Kong in the way it's sort of becoming, because I was born there originally, you sort of think it's the same. They should have the same rights as us in the UK, but actually they no longer do. And when that right's taken away, that is quite scary, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's the fear. As much as I would like a certain element of you can't say what you want online, but then you see the other side of it, the extreme side of it, and when it goes too far. And I think all this boils down to is humans ruin everything. If the humans didn't troll in the first place, this wouldn't be a discussion point. If everyone's friendly, I remember the early days of Twitter, and for those that were on Twitter years ago, whether it was personal level, Twitter sort of 2011, 2012 was innocent. It was nice times. And now it's kind of everyone just gets ranty and offended over everything. So I think, people ruin everything. I think that's the takeaway from that point. Rowan, what stood out for you on social media this week?
Well, a couple of things. I think the first thing that I'll talk about is the random acts of crochet kindness that has been kicked off. This is a story that I heard about via the Mank on Facebook, and it's about a lady called Sarah Sharples, who's been leaving little messages with crochet hearts around the Media City Salford area. And it's basically to say, you are loved. People, falling apart, please take a heart. Know that you are loved is the kind of tagline. And then today I've realised as well via social media again that it's stretched to Altrincham, and our happy to chat benches have now been crocheted up with hearts, and all the money goes to charity, and it's people doing it that work full-time, or they have their other lives, but they're just doing these little nice things to leave messages to make people feel good, which I think in this climate is a really nice thing to be doing.
I saw it when you said when you said it was in Salford and Media City, and then again I saw it on social media today on the Happy to Chat bench. It's those little moments, as you said, the random acts of kindness that really do make people smile. I think it was about 18 months ago. I don't know if it still happens, because I don't go on the tram station at Timpley that often, but there was someone that used to leave notes at Timpley tram station, like just kind quotes and everything. And that was a really nice moment. So have you guys sort of seen any other random acts of kindness that you think, oh, that's really nice, that's really stood out?
I was at the Stretford Food Hall for a walk and sitting on the bench outside of it a few weeks ago, and a guy was just walking around and paying compliments to everybody. But at first I was like, oh, you like my boots? And then he said to the next lady on the bench somewhere else, she liked her coat, and I felt somewhat less special. But again, all it takes sometimes is just the kind words, and we all think so much in our heads, but does it ever make it out of our mouth? What does it cost to say something nice? And that's something we could take onto social media, as you're saying about the trolling. If only all of the positive love on social media could outweigh that. But yeah,
nice kind moments, isn't it, like that? So what's the sort of kindest thing that's happened to you, Henry? Sort of anything, does anything happen in Wow Yau Chow that you just think people go out of the way and go like, wow? Wow.
I think there has been a lot of these instances for us. You know, like we do have a lot of messages that come through to us, and like, you know, almost like we're doing what we do best and what we love to do best, but we do get the messages and the feedback thanking us for being here. And like we get like messages like, for instance, people, you know, are having to self-isolate and stuff like that. So sometimes our food acts as like a little treat for them at certain times, especially now that we're also delivering. So I think, you know, for us, hospitality always helps us, sort of is involved in people's lives. And I think what we do is we still have that sort of touch and that presence, but that's why we look forward to being back in the restaurant. We can try to do that a little bit more, but we've had lots of nice messages, lovely messages, and that really does keep us going, and the team as well in that way. So that's been really positive overall.
Definitely props for Sarah for doing this, like going and putting these hearts. And I mean, imagine like you've woke up on the wrong side of bed, and you come out and you see these sort of crocheted hearts. It must be a really amazing, just make you smile. It's those difference. Like I go running a lot, and it's those when people just say hello to you when you're running, because sometimes people just ignore you. It's such a nice feeling for someone to just nod and smile and be pleasant. A bit of an old-fashioned atmosphere, but I like it. Yeah. So what else do you see, Rowan?
So the other thing that perked my attention was Marks and Spencer's offering to be a safe place for anyone who needs it. And so if somebody's feeling vulnerable, they can go into Marks and Spencer's and stay for as long as they need to until they then feel safe. And they can also approach the colleagues that are working there until they feel happier or safer to leave, or the colleagues can help them. But I think what actually really caught my eye about this was the language used, which it wasn't directed at women, it was for everybody. And I don't know if anyone saw the Ask for Angela campaign that went into pubs, and you could go to the bar, and if you felt vulnerable, ask for Angela, and they'd kind of ring you a taxi. And that seemed to be very much aimed at women, but this Marks and Spencer's thing is for all of the members of society, which I think is a really good thing and is needed at the moment, especially as people might be at home and not be safe. The only place maybe you can go is to the shops. So to go and do your food shop in Marks and Spencer's and then get some help was, yeah, I thought it was a really good thing and a positive thing to hear this week.
Yeah, no, that's I haven't actually seen the M&S one itself, but I like the fact that you just mentioned it. It's for everyone, because I got the sense Tesco and Asda did something similar, but I got the sense that was more geared towards women than everyone. And I think it's definitely, I think it's been needed at the moment. A lot of people are feeling vulnerable and alone and so on. So did you guys see that at all?
Hadn't seen it, but I'll check that out now. No.
Definitely. I think reacting to obviously what's happened in London and so on, I think brands have had to step up to the mark and realise that supermarkets at the moment, supermarkets and coffee shops are pretty much the only time people are going out.
Yeah.
At the moment. So I think that they're playing an important part in society, and that literally it's the only people I see, literally people in supermarkets. it's a bit crazy, but I think, yeah, definitely making everyone feel welcome is definitely important. So why did the M&S one stand out for you as opposed to the other ones? Was it the...
It was just one that I actually saw. I hadn't actually seen the other ones, I'll be honest. It probably came up on my feed because it had so many likes and shares, so it'd been bandied around quite a lot. And I think possibly because of what Caroline will touch on in a minute, you know, what has happened in the last week has been a big eye-opener, really, as to how some people are more vulnerable and, you know, do need help. So yeah, I think that's why it kind of stood out. Yeah,
definitely. I think yours and Caroline's points are part of the same talking points. I think we might as well jump to Caroline straight away now. And what obviously what use of that is what we're just talking about.
Yeah, so yeah, it's probably the heavier talking point of the show, but the Sarah Everard news, obviously, and there's been so much on social media over the last week, and almost I think it stood out for me seeing about the Vigil and some of the photographs that have been so prominent, particularly on Instagram, maybe because I'm quite visually led with things, but some of the photography of seeing how the police sort of heavy-handed way of dealing with the Vigil, and the fact that it was bookended by both International Women's Day and then Mother's Day. It's just been quite enlightening to see the different conversations that have been happening on social media around that. So yeah, I totally feel like there are so many people that don't always feel safe or don't always have somewhere to go, and sometimes a picture just speaks 1,000 words, and that's it with social. When you see some of the photographs of what's been happening at what was a peaceful protest compared to, I think, Rangers fans been taken through the city with police escorts, and you're thinking, is that equality? Not sure. Well, I am sure. So yeah, it's obviously been a major point on social media this last week.
Yeah, for me, and I'm sure Henry will agree with me, it's been quite hard to watch as a man and not knowing the right things to say, and knowing that whatever you do say could be twisted in some way. I think that however we stand, whatever we say about it, our words are going to be twisted. So I think it's quite hard. But the one thing that stood out for me was the 97% of women had been sexually harassed, and I thought, really, is it that high? And I said to my mum on the phone, 97%, that seems really high. And my mum was like, no, I can 100% believe that. And I was like, I could get 50%, but 97. So I think that was a big eye opener for me, and maybe that's because of the circles I hang around. I'd like to think that most of my male friends are respectable and wouldn't harass women, but
yeah,
that was a shocking stat for me.
Yeah, and that's it. There are so many, and a lot of men are very respectable and very protective and very caring. But as a woman, you're encountering so many people, men and women, all through your life. You will have those stories, and I think all of my friends have those stories, whether it's traveling on a bus and something inappropriate happening, or, you know, standing at a bus stop, and there's all sorts of just things that would surprise. Yeah, you experience it as a woman perhaps, and even as a woman, you're not thinking of it from the point of view of men, that, oh yeah, it's only perhaps, you know, women that are having it at this percentage level, and you know, men go through things too, but yeah, but it is a very high statistic, isn't it?
Rowan, did that surprise you? Not surprise you at all?
I have to say I was not surprised, actually. No, it didn't surprise me. And I think as a woman, you see it, you hear it, it happens all the time. And the small incidences that men might brush off are actually quite big for some women and do stay with you. And that, you know, I'm not tarring all men. Men are great and, you know, they're wonderful people. But there are, unfortunately, a small minority that think it's okay to do things that are wildly inappropriate. Yeah, it happens quite a lot, unfortunately.
It really shocked me. And Henry, what you must have seen the image of the vigil and what the police did. I mean, what were your thoughts on that?
Shocking, you know. Ultimately, I think it's like what you just said earlier, I suppose, Alex. you know, that 97%, it's, of course it's true, but it's just hard to understand. As you say, you know, within the circles that I've been in, I just wouldn't expect people, male friends of mine, to also harass women in any such ways. You know, I'll be honest with you, it's almost a bit lost for words as a man, a bit lost for words really, and not quite sure almost what to say. And probably that's the whole point. In that case, we should just listen then. Listen a bit more.
Yeah, listen, like what can we do? It's like sometimes we need some help and direction. We're men, we don't talk about things. We definitely need we need some help in like what is appropriate, what isn't. We all know instantly what is appropriate and what isn't, but like what line does it cross between, just like you said before, Caroline, like that man came up to you in a random act of kindness and love your boots, but depending on how you said that could be sinister or it could be friendly.
I took that as a good thing. They were very lovely boots. But you're right. Yeah, it depends on the tone, doesn't it? And it's I don't know. Does this sound really petty? But I say sometimes it's even things like being called sweetheart because you're perceived to be a young woman, but you're trying to hold, you know, you're holding your own in your industry, or it's a work situation and that happens. And you think, well, what can I call him back? Do I call him sweetheart? How do you balance it out? Whether that's just a power dynamic thing, I don't know, but it's not quite the same level, is it? But it's still a little experience that is just quite commonplace. I know people that have had their foreheads, you know, patted, like, well done, you know. It's all sort of, it grows from somewhere, doesn't it? The way that we treat particular genders and race and all of that. Yeah,
I think this whole week, I think, as you said, Caroline, it was International Women's Day. It was Mother's Day. It was the fact it was a cop who did it.
Yeah.
And it's all those three combined, because again, the other talking point is like, why is it this case? Because there's been so many cases that have never been in the front page of the media, have never been all over social media, where women sadly have been attacked or murdered by men. And I think it was a combination possibly of those three things that got everyone talking. And yeah, it's been a tough week for social media in that respect.
Yeah. My second topic though is chocolate. So
so one extreme to the other.
No, very different. No, it was the news about Thornton's, and after so many years that it's closing down its physical shops. But then having a little look through some of the threads on social media, where there are a couple of people commenting about, okay, so Thornton's is going online, but if you look at like how up to date some of their social media is or isn't, that's quite interesting. That they've probably, you know, closed a lot of their physical shops because Hotel Chocolat has just really taken a big share of their market, and yet they were going to be head-on facing Hotel Chocolat on Instagram, where a lot of their people are, who have like a much bigger share and following Hotel Chocolat have on Instagram than Thornton. So it's like, okay, you guys need to up your game a bit. So it'll be interesting to see how they focus on the more online brand.
Do you know what? I was really shocked at the story that Thornton's closing, not because they were closing, but was because of the fact I didn't realise they were still open as physical stores. They closed in Altrincham, I think. Someone said it was 2012. And I thought that's where the whole chains closed down then. And I was like, they're still open. They still exist. Like, they just become a thing that people bought on a shop. Or I think they occasionally appeared at Altrincham Market. That was the biggest shock. And that goes down to what you said. They haven't got a social media footprint as such.
No. They haven't.
It was one of those. So Rowan, do you remember like Thornton's from childhood? Because it was one of those things you used to go to as a child to buy every present.
Of course, it was a super special event. I think as the shops diminished, the events became less frequent.
But it was. There were the great stores. I mean, the one in Altrincham used to be where the Entertainer is now. So next to Bistro Pierre, it used to be around that little block, and you used to go there. And remember, you used to be able to get an Easter egg and get your name written on. That was the special thing that you used to do in Thornton's. And I think, yeah, I'd kind of do miss them looking back. They were like a brand. Do you remember them, Henry? Do you remember going?
Yeah. I remember seeing them. So I've noticed. I can think of two straight away. Basically, in the shopping centres, one in Trafford Centre and one in Arndale. So as you just said, like remembering about the Easter eggs and how you can put the names on them, and they used to do that quite well. But I remember also getting ice creams from them as well. To be honest, they used to have an ice cream stall, like on their in their shop. So that was actually quite nice. But as you say, it's become how relevant they are in the current. There's so much chocolate, so much almost like bespoke craft chocolates now. So if they're not really having much of a presence, then that's a problem, isn't it? So which is what's happened really.
Yeah, I think we all love to look back. We all love to look back at the brands that we used to talk about being amazing. So everyone talks about Woolies or Stolen from Ivor, or these old brands that we used to have in Altrincham and all across. But then they disappeared for a reason. People weren't spending money from them. So no.
I think it just boggles my mind when I looked online and I saw, gosh, some of their most recent Instagram posts were about Easter last year. It's like, you should have seen this coming. It's just, it's just not possible to run a business like that now. You need to sell it to the gram, don't you? Like Easter last year. I mean, when I've been researching some of the bars and checking who's opening on the 12th of April, I'm like, some people haven't updated the Facebook page since December. Not even, and they're supposed to be opening. I know everyone's the pent up demand, but it's like, if you're not seen, no one's going to spend money with you. No.
But I'm going to look at the social media now. I'm intrigued to see how bad they are.
Just getting 3 followers.
Give them a like. Give them some
give them the motivation to post once a year. Oh no, but I do miss Thornton, and I do miss some of the old brands. But as I said, they disappear for a reason. So we're going to have a quick fire round now to wrap up the end of the show. I've got a few things that I've saw. We're going to go quick fire around the room. So we're now roughly a year on from when the pandemic started. And you all know, if you follow me on social media, and Caroline knows this particularly, how much I love music. So what was the last gig you went to? My last gig, I can remember, it's the 14th of March. It was the Subways who did the song Rock and Roll Queen at the Manchester Academy. And that was the last gig. So that's over a year ago now, was my last proper gig I went to. So I'm going to start with you, because you've probably been to one, Caroline. What was your last gig you went to?
It was an unusual one. It's not a band that I particularly know very well, but the Royal Exchange Theatre in February had Alpha Mist performing. So they were a band performing in the round. I think the tickets came through via Band on the Wall. And it was just experimental, like electroacoustic sounds, and it was a great experiential kind of gig when you're sitting up high looking down at them, and something really different. So I'm glad we had such a unique final gig for the year.
Yeah, something totally different. That's good. And Rowan, what was yours?
Well, mine was a super long time ago, because we went away for a year and then got locked down for a year. So it was probably Young Fathers, I think, at the Albert Hall. Yeah.
I know someone was at that, and he said they're really, really good.
It was amazing. And they've cancelled the first one as well, so it was extra special to get to see it the second time. Yeah. The Albert Hall's a fantastic venue as well. So love that venue, especially if you can get upstairs and look down. If you're downstairs, it's too crowded, and it's too crowded. Nice little seat. Yeah. Stand up if you want. Little dance. Definitely. Sit back down. Oh yeah, I'm missing all these venues talking about it now. So I can see Henry's cogs are ticking over. What was your last gig?
It was that long ago. I think it was John Legend, and I think it was at the MEN. But I think it was a year after the bombing. So that was a very different experience then, because obviously, like, it was just reopening basically. I wasn't sure that gig was going to happen. So that I'm just trying to remember. That seems such a long time ago.
But it was a good one. It was a good one to end on. John Legend.
Yes, so that was a fantastic. It was a fantastic gig. That one, yeah. Well, that was the last one.
Yeah, and as you said, it was such a strange experience going back to the arena after the bombing. I can't remember what my first gig was back at the arena. It was potentially Liam Gallagher. I think we went and saw it again. It was really weird walking up the stairs and walking into the venue. And I'd been there so many times beforehand, but going in for that first time was just like, oh, this is weird.
Yeah.
But then it was like, once you're in there, it's a gig, it's nice, it's a good feeling. So yeah,
Yep.
So we've gone through, John Legend, Young Fathers, and some weird thing at the Royal Exchange.
Alchemist, check them out.
So the next quote is popping on from music, actually. There's been Trafford Council, in their infinite wisdom, have launched a consultation on the Buskers Charter. They're having a charter to potentially restrict Buskers activity in Altrincham, and I think it's just a really bad mood. So I'm pushing them not to do it. So if you're listening, anyone from Trafford Council, don't do it. You're being stupid. Literally, what are your thoughts? Do Buskers for you add to the atmosphere of Altrincham or detract from the atmosphere in Altrincham? So we'll start with someone who's the most central. Rowan, first of all, what do you think?
It depends how good they are. It's always a talking point whether they're good or not. So I think I actually like it. I guess they want to remove the amps. I think that's the problem, is that the sound's carrying. If someone was right outside my shop with an amp that sounds like a plane taking off, probably not for me. But you know, I think there's definitely a place for them. Yeah, I think they're good.
And Henry, you probably don't witness them as much being on the main road, but what are your thoughts on Buskers?
Obviously, going through a town centre, you see it quite often, and I suppose that's a very good point what Rowan just said. I suppose if you're a shop there and the amps are blowing out and really blaring, that is a problem. But I do agree that as an overall, though, the ones I've seen in Altrincham are actually quite good. So it does add to the atmosphere, and and people do usually enjoy it. And I think when it's sun outside and there's music there's music there, it does add to the atmosphere. So I think there probably needs to be a little bit of a tweak, maybe, as to just for the sake of the businesses as well, more than anything as well, I suppose. But overall, I think we definitely should keep it, but maybe moderate it a little bit.
Fantastic. And our music fan here, Caroline, what do you think?
I'm very on board with both of those comments. Yeah, I think you want the quality to be good. You want like maybe a full ban on panpipe versions of the Prodigy. Not up for that at all, no. But other than that, if there's good quality and if it's a chance for local musicians to get out there, and it provides a real sort of platform for the community and local artists, doesn't it? And I think it just gives so much character. But I'm not a shop owner myself, so it's a good point you're making there, Rowan, about the amps outside your shop. I might be seeing things a bit differently if I was in that position. So yeah,
the mixed thoughts, but I think walking through, I like the music. I love the music as it is, and I think Altringham's got such a rich history of music. Obviously, the Stone Roses formed here. Johnny Marr and Morrissey have got connections here, and imagine Trafford Council going, "Oi, Ian, don't go singing down George Street," or "Johnny, stop playing that guitar." It'd be a bit hideous to think back looking at history if that happened. So last point in the quick fire round, and this is back to social media. So Piers Morgan, he actually handed his resignation in while we were recording last week's show, so we just missed talking about it last week. But he obviously not being on Breakfast TV, and even with just a week of him not being on Breakfast TV, I found actually the act of going on Twitter and him not ranting about something actually quite peaceful. So I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts? Is social media more peaceful without Piers Morgan being on TV every morning? So we'll start with you, Henry, first this time.
Admittedly, I'm not really much of a fan, I suppose, in that way. So don't really have too much more on that one. I've not really noticed, but so I think I'll be honest, I probably will just scroll past it anyhow. So, but if it's certainly a bit more peaceful, then absolutely, I'm all for it. But I remember reading though today, he's apparently supposed to have an offer, like a £10 million offer or something like that, to go to America. I think is it Rupert Murdoch? They're probably quite fancying him to go over there. And then apparently someone else is already potentially offering another contract for here. I just remember reading the headline. So, you know, I don't think he's doing quite bad out of it. So he's not crying, definitely.
I've totally missed that, but they can have him as far as I'm concerned. So, Caroline, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so we're missing Trump on social media. Now we're missing Piers, just tumbleweed. No, yeah, it's definitely more peaceful. But then again, not a fan, but it was interesting to sometimes see that even Piers was calling things out where you're like, yes, this is blatantly wrong. And when you find yourself on the side of Piers Morgan, yeah, you're like, oh, that's yeah, interesting. So he was quite an interesting barometer for looking at news stories in the world and what his take was on things. And yeah, I don't miss him overall. No.
Rowan, your thoughts?
I don't miss him either, I have to say. Yeah, I'm not a massive fan and don't follow him on socials, so wouldn't know what he talks about, unfortunately.
I mean, it's an interesting one. I didn't follow him on social media, but I think it was that act of waking up in the morning, checking your phone in bed and going, what the hell's he said now? Because everyone was talking about it. And I think it has been so much more peaceful with him not being on TV every morning. So bring back the big breakfast is what I say. That was the best. That was a fun TV breakfast show that was around 20 years ago, and maybe even longer now. So fantastic. Well, thanks for that. We're wrapping up the end of the show now. Thanks again, Henry. Thanks again, Rowan, and thanks again, Caroline. It's been a fantastic end to season 1, we're calling it, of the Social Conversation. We've had 6 episodes of many fantastic guests from Altrincham. We're going to be back for those that are watching it. Keep following the Facebook page, Altrincham HQ. Subscribe on YouTube, because we're going to be back after Easter. After the Easter break, we're going to be back with some more guests from across the Trafford region. So we're going to be talking to people from Sale and Stretford and Urmston, and casting the net wider to find out more people's opinions. So thank you again. If you click the like, comment and share button, we're going to bid you farewell, and we'll see you all in a few weeks' time. Thanks, guys. Bye.
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 Bye.